A few weeks ago, I connected with Freddie, the co-founder of Along AI, on LinkedIn. And then something interesting happened. I went to Along AI's website, I left it, I looked at a couple other companies that were kind of in the same space. And then a few days later, I found myself coming back to Along AI's website. And that doesn't happen very often. Usually, when I keep returning to a company, it's because there's something valuable there, but I just haven't figured out what it is yet. So today I'm going to do something a little different. What I want to do is I want to walk through Along AI the way a prospective customer might. I'm not trying to critique them. I'm a fan of what they've built. I'm not telling them how to run their business. But let's simply experience the company as someone who is discovering it for the first time. And then we'll look at it and I'll share what I notice along the way. I think it's super helpful because founders almost never get to experience their own business through fresh eyes. Okay, so here we are on the company LinkedIn page. So the first thing that we notice is that it does not feel like another AI company trying to convince me that their model is smarter than anyone else's. They're talking about context. They are talking about memory. They are talking about infrastructure. Right away, that's a much more interesting conversation. I also noticed that they have recognizable customers, enterprise security certificates. They also have a really specific point of view. So that creates confidence, that creates trust right away. But almost immediately, another question came into my head. Can people actually see how good what they built is? Because those are two completely different questions. A business can be excellent and still not be immediately understood. And that's something I'm going to watch as we go through everything. Another thing I always pay attention to is the founders themselves. Not whether they're not whether they're charismatic, not whether they're like super good at LinkedIn, but whether they seem to be chasing attention or if they're chasing understanding. And as I started going through Along AI, I never once got the impression that Julian or Freddie were trying to sound impressive. I felt like they were trying to solve a problem that they really believe exists. And I know that sounds like a small distinction. I don't think so. Companies almost always become a reflection of their founders. If the founders are obsessed with getting attention for themselves, then the company usually reflects that. When the founders are obsessed with understanding a real problem, that tends to show up everywhere. Let's see if that's true as we go through the rest of the company. Okay, so this is their website that you get to when you click the visit website link here. Okay, so Along has two different website entry points. You can see context keys here and AI agents here. But let's start here because this is where the link actually comes from LinkedIn. And then as we go through the rest of the site, you'll see what I mean. Let's just go through it. Okay. So the first thing I noticed is that the hero here, it doesn't immediately communicate how significant what they built actually is. We'll get to that. But I actually love the way this starts. You need one place to reference everything cohesively. Yes, that's a fantastic insight. 100%, I think it's true. Most companies don't have an AI problem. They have a context problem. I completely agree with that as well. The diagrams are really well done, and they're positioning themselves underneath ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, and other models. So they're not trying to replace those companies. They're trying to become the layer that makes them work better. Strategically, I think that's a strong place to be. As I kept reading, though, one thing came back to me, and it's the issue I mentioned. The ideas are actually easier to understand than some of the language. So remember, I'm looking at this as a prospective buyer, and I'm seeing terms like context engine and context keys. I'm seeing context safes, knowledge graphs. I'm seeing agentic AI. They're all true. They're all technically correct. But when they come at you all together, it makes my brain work hard. It's a pretty high cognitive load for someone who's just seeing along AI for the first time. And here's why I think that's important. Okay, so picture I'm a founder of a manufacturing company or an accounting firm. I don't wake up thinking I need a context engine. I wake up thinking I can't trust our AI. It drifts. It keeps giving inconsistent answers. Our AI doesn't understand how our business actually works. Those are the problems that buyers get right away. The beautiful thing is that Along AI actually solves these problems. I just wonder if the simplicity of the problem or the importance of the problem gets hidden behind the sophistication of the words and the terms. I'm not saying it's a weakness. When smart people build smart things, it should sound smart. The challenge is making sure buyers don't have to become experts before they become interested. Okay, so let's scroll to the next section. So here we've got, I really like this. We've got connect, organize, deploy. Simple, operational, easy to follow. And then I get into what might be my favorite feature, and that is the AI interview agent. This is brilliant because one of the biggest problems inside businesses isn't documents, it isn't documentation, it's people. So much of the knowledge that the company relies on lives inside someone's head. Someone who's been there for 15 years, someone who knows why that specific thing is done that specific way. That kind of knowledge almost never gets documented. Now, that's a real problem. That's actually, they're trying to solve a real problem. And I don't hear too many companies actually talking about that. Okay, so let's move on to agents, because as I mentioned, there's two different website entry points with Along AI. And I actually like that this is a separate product experience. Okay, so most companies would try to put everything on one website. Instead, Along separates the infrastructure from the implementation. Super, super smart. Another thing I like is right away, they do acknowledge something that most AI companies don't. Generic AI isn't enough. There is no one size fits all. I reject that completely. And I'm saying that because I watched it happen. I have seen over and over, I've worked with over 600 companies. They've been sold templates and systems and generic solutions that do not fit who they are, that do not fit how they operate, that do not fit the value they provide. So those templates and systems and solutions are useless. Businesses' processes are different. Teams work differently. Real workflows inside of businesses are messy. Along is saying that custom workflows matter. And I completely agree with that. Okay, so let's get back to that whole bifurcation thing. So this almost feels like two businesses. One is infrastructure and one is implementation. Neither is wrong, but it does mean that the company has two stories it can tell. So now we have an interesting question. We have a strategic question. Which story should a buyer hear first? All right, let's keep moving here. So the next is an article called Why We Exist. It's one of my two favorite things that I looked at today. Okay, I like this because it doesn't feel like marketing. It doesn't read like marketing. It feels like I'm a fly on the wall and I'm listening to Julian and Freddie thinking out loud. And I agree with what they're saying. So essentially, they're saying that we have all been solving the wrong problem. The issue isn't intelligence. The issue is memory. It's like real lived experience, actual humans, expertise that has been learned over the years. It's context. It's it's a super thoughtful observation. Um, I also like that they're thinking in terms of infrastructure. They're not out here trying to build another feature. They're trying to build a layer, not a layer. They're building a foundation that supports everything else. That is a very different ambition. Okay, so let's keep moving. Our story. Full disclosure, I love founder stories, especially when the founder stories explain not just why a company exists, but why that company needs to exist. I don't care. I don't care if you have a solution that's nice to have. I want you to tell me why people are starving for what you have before they even knew you existed. The more I read about Julian and Freddie, the more I realize this company couldn't have been built by accident. They're both high-level athletes in Europe, in North America. They have backgrounds in sales, architecture, product design, startup ecosystems. Eventually, you stop seeing random experiences and you start seeing why this company thinks differently. They're family. They're brothers. There's something different about something that siblings build together. They didn't build trust in a startup weekend in Silicon Valley. They built it. They built it over a lifetime. I actually think that shows up in the way the company feels. Read their story. It feels right. It's an AI company that feels unusually human, and it feels like they're trying to build something that lasts. Okay, so I know most people won't read documentation. I always do because documentation tells you how people think, not just how they're trying to market their solutions. OAuth, knowledge graph, instructions. Here they've got safes. So safes appears to be part of their IP, which makes a lot of sense given how their solutions are multi-departmental and exhaustive across the whole company. You can see here that they talk about having Claude integration, ChatGPT integration. This is real software. This is a real solution. It's not just a pretty landing page. It's not just an AI wrapper pretending to be software. You can usually tell when a company is demonstrating actual software versus when they're demonstrating just screenshots. Another interesting section they have is working with us. This feels genuine. You know, they talk about their craft. They use words like curiosity, community, feedback, product obsession. Those don't feel like values that someone copied from another company. They feel lived. And in my experience, the culture shows up eventually. That culture that you want to build, that foundation, it shows up in their actual products. And that's probably what is happening here. Okay, so what surprised me the most? What surprised me the most looking at Along AI, it's stronger than I expected. It's not the technology. That's not what surprised me. The thinking did. The second thing that surprised me is I don't think that they're trying to build another AI application. That's not the feeling I got, and that's all I see these days. And what I think they're doing is they're creating a category. And creating a category is much, much harder to do because it's not just about building the product. You have to teach people that the problem exists before they'll actually understand why your solutions matter. Let me say it another way. You have to have a super, super strong strategy and a super compelling story. And the third thing, maybe the last thing that surprised me is I don't think the biggest opportunity for Along AI is building a better product. From everything that I've looked at publicly, I think the bigger opportunity is helping the market understand just how good the existing product already is. So sometimes the challenge a business is facing isn't about their capability. Along AI is awesome. It's the reason I came back. It's the reason I'm making this video. Sometimes the challenge is being seen, The challenge is being recognized. And sometimes the business doesn't have a positioning problem, they have a recognition problem. So this business already deserves attention. The market just hasn't caught up as yet. Okay, so super fun time spending a few moments with this company. I can honestly say that I understand why it stuck in my mind and I came back. Along AI is solving a real problem. The founders, brothers, Julian and Freddie, they think deeply. It's clear. The product feels thoughtful. And more importantly, it feels like they're trying to make AI genuinely useful inside real businesses, like instead of just trying to make AI look impressive. Every once in a while, you come across a company that's trying to build something genuinely important, and I think this is one of them.